The experiments had always been a part of her life, but this time Sophie had a different story to tell. Her voice trembled as she whispered into the phone, "Please, help me. My stepfather wants to do bad things to me." Through the heating vent, she could hear Marcus in his study, calmly announcing the final phase of Project Whisper. His cold words sent chills down her spine. Subject's resistance indicates readiness for culmination of trauma response study. Sophie moved quickly, slipping the red memory stick behind a loose baseboard, the same hiding place where she'd seen Marcus conceal incriminating files before. Then she waited, listening to the distant wail of sirens growing louder with each passing second. This time, she thought, clutching the small device tightly, someone would have to believe her. She finally had proof. The police response was immediate and overwhelming. Red and blue lights bathed Marlborough Street as multiple units surrounded the brownstone. Officer Sarah Chun led the team, her instincts sharp despite years of dealing with false allegations. Something about the child's voice on the other end of the line had struck a chord deep within her, a raw desperation that couldn't be faked. Inside, they found Marcus Sullivan seated at his desk, supremely calm, already reaching for his credentials. "There seems to be a misunderstanding," he began, his professional smile firmly in place. "I'm a child psychiatrist conducting authorized research." But Sophie wasn't waiting. While the officers secured the house, she darted to her room, prying loose the baseboard with trembling fingers. The red memory stick felt impossibly small in her hand as she ran back to Officer Chun. "Please," she whispered, pressing it into the officer's palm. "Look." What followed was the systematic dismantling of Marcus Sullivan's carefully constructed facade. The laptop seized as evidence revealed the horrifying truth behind Project Whisper: videos, documents, research notes, all meticulously cataloging his systematic traumatization of a 7-year-old girl under the guise of scientific research. Subject demonstrates heightened fear response to controlled stimuli. Recommend increasing isolation parameters. His clinical voice echoed through the precinct as detectives reviewed the footage. Hidden in encrypted files were even more sinister plans, proposals to expand Project Whisper by recruiting additional subjects from vulnerable families. Marcus had been building towards something far larger, using Sophie as his proof of concept. Claire, Sophie's mother, collapsed when shown the evidence. Her world shattered as she realized how completely she'd been manipulated. "He said it was therapy," she repeated over and over, holding Sophie close. "He said he was helping us heal." Marcus remained eerily composed during his arrest, speaking into an imaginary recorder. Note: interesting development in subject response paradigm. Law enforcement intervention provides unexpected variable in trauma study. 6 months later, Sophie sat in a real therapist's office, warm, safe, without cameras or mirrors. Dr. Sarah Martinez specialized in helping children recover from trauma, her methods gentle and transparent. During one session, she asked softly, "You know what the bravest thing is, Sophie? You recognized something was wrong and kept trying to tell people until someone listened. That's real courage." The preliminary hearing revealed the full scope of Marcus's plans. His so-called research, deemed ethically abhorrent by the medical board, had been building toward a controversial theory about trauma's role in childhood development. Sophie had been his test case, her suffering meticulously documented to support his hypothesis. Detective Chun explained to Claire, her last call saved more than just herself. He had files on other potential subjects, other vulnerable families he planned to infiltrate. 1 year later, Sophie stood before a different kind of audience at the Boston Police Department's annual award ceremony. She received a special commendation for courage, her story helping to establish new protocols for handling children's emergency calls. In her small but steady voice, she addressed the crowd, "Sometimes, the scariest monsters are the ones who take notes." In her new room, free of cameras or mirrors, Sophie kept a small box. Inside lay the red memory stick that had finally given her a voice adults would hear. Next to it rested a newspaper clipping about Marcus's sentencing and license revocation, and beneath both, a simple note from Detective Chun: "Never stop telling the truth. Someone will always listen." At night, when shadows grew long, Sophie no longer heard the scratch of Marcus's pen or the whir of hidden cameras. Instead, she heard the gentle purr of Whiskers, her cat, curled up beside her. Her mother's footsteps padded softly down the hallway, bringing comfort instead of anxiety. And there was the blessed silence of a home where no one was taking notes on her fears. She was no longer Subject S. She was just Sophie, learning to be a child again, one unmarked day at a time. Ask Explain.